Okay, this is going to be a ZVT of IMcuddlebear from Gear in the Rear versus Watcho from Gear in the Rear. It's going to be a practice match of TVZ on Neoplanet S, as I said before, and I'm going to go through both players' perspectives as I have made notes from both players. So I'm going to start with the Terran first. I'm Cuddlebear, and there are 8 different points I want to talk about, amongst other things. Is the opening builds. Actually, I'll just go through them as I speak. So what I noticed immediately is that IMcuddlebear asked me about this eBay engineering bay blocking the 15 hatching Zerg, if it's good or not. And in my opinion, I said it's not good, and the reasoning behind it for me is that when you engineering bay block a Zerg, well, what it does is that it delays their hatchery. It doesn't quite delay their spawning pool. In fact, it speeds up the spawning pool because they'll just throw it down right away because they need lings to kill the engineering bay or cancel it. And they can still, in the meantime, make drones and gas and tech. And they can keep going. Yes, they do get a little bit less of large production, but you have to keep in mind they also start the queen earlier and they also make drones earlier. But even though they might make drones less an amount in the long run, but that's why I think engineering bay is not good. Block is not good because it delays your barracks, and when you delay your barracks, you don't have larva. You can only make one SCV at a time. It delays your orbital, which means your meals are delayed, which means you mine less, and you're going to be forced to go into something like early command center, in which case you're still delaying your other things like gas and tech, because in Terran you want to get your tech as soon as possible, and then you can start churning out your units, because what you want to do is use your units to the maximum cost efficiency. So to get to that point where you make units, it takes quite a bit longer time if you freeze up 125 minerals, or whatever you get from canceling. I think it's like 93 or something. So that's why I don't think it's good. Okay, so for the first point of your opening build is that you don't do quite the same opening build as a standard, let's say a standard TVZ, which is either a Reaper opening or a 1-Rax command center or CC first, and then, that doesn't really matter. But what does matter is what goes after it. Is that most people go 1-Rax and then double gas and then factory reactor Hellion, or Reapers into reactor Hellion. And the whole thing about that compared to your 3-Rax opening build is that a reactor Hellion tapes map control. This is what's good about it. It takes map control. Reactor, Hellion, and Reaper. It takes map control. It scouts for you. Your units don't die if you don't get surrounded, which is pretty hard for the Zerg to do off creep, unless you're not watching your units. And even if they do get surrounded, if you micro well, your units will be more cost efficient. And it's 650 right now. Normally, I think a 1-Rax CC into reactor Hellion, you get your Hellions at like 630. They come out at 630, I think, around that. So then, even if you did that, which is the latest scout you would do with that sort of factory opening, Reaper, if you open Reaper, then your Reaper will scout even earlier. Is that you don't know what the hell your opponent's doing, right? All you see is this. So you don't know if they're going to get all in or not. You made a comment earlier also about the possibility of getting Bane busted, which is actually what happens in this game, but you don't quite have the knowledge to differentiate that between a macro and a Bane bust, or Roach push or whatever. So I think that's why a reactor Hellion thing is better than your 3-Rax thing. And the other half of the reason why it's better is because I don't exactly know what the point or the purpose of this 3-Rax opening is. For Wings of Liberty, like 3-Rax openings were pretty common, but what they would usually get is like 2 tech labs and a reactor. And the whole reasoning behind that is that they get 2 tech labs, they get their stim, combat shield, and concussive really early, and they make Marine Marauder. And the Marine Marauder is like good throughout the game because you just keep making that, and Marauders defend against roaches, they tank Bane shots, that's just a little bit of whatever. But the whole reason is that you get 2 tech labs, you upgrade everything quicker. So if you only have 1 tech lab, which is what you do with a factory opening, because you only have one racks at that point. Then you only have one tech lab, and then once you get that tech lab, you get combat shield. I'm pretty sure. In the rare case you get stim, I'm pretty sure you don't get stim. You get combat shield first. So you only get one upgrade instead of the two, or the three, including concussive shell. So if you get those upgrades quick and you get a good Marine Marauder force, you can push out with it. Maybe time it also with a Hellion to do like a Marine Marauder Hellion push. But they sort of gone out of style because you can't quite do anything with them. If against like a good Zerg player who scouts, they will see that you have a giant Marine Marauder ball and they will just defend it. In your case, you're making mass Marines. Remember what I said about earlier about producing units and putting pressure with those units and being cost effective? Well, what you're doing is, what a reactor opening doing is, they get their tech first, and then they start making units like Hellions. And then they can go into, Starport, more racks, more whatever, engineering bay, whatever. But what you're doing is, you're sinking all these resources into Marines, and they really just sit there, because they don't really do anything. They just sort of sit there, and they don't secure map presence, they don't do anything. They sort of just sit there, yeah. So, anyways, what comes after is the Bane bust. And what I want to say about is this Baneling bust and this positioning. So earlier, a Ling run by we saw, it didn't go through. It didn't go through. The wall wasn't a complete wall off, so it didn't actually stop the Lings. So what happened was the Lings ran up, but you killed them because they got into your main and you killed them. That's great. But besides that glaring error is that these buildings, all three of these buildings and supply depots, all take 4 Banelings to kill. And if the Banelings were locked up right here, because there's that little sliver right here, if the Banes right-click the bunker and they went through the sliver, all these buildings would die, along with these Marines if they were in splash radius. So it's actually kind of bad. So I think that's why you've been having a bit of trouble with Bane busts, maybe. Maybe not. Just future reference if you haven't. Yeah, as you see that happen, actually, that's exactly what happens. A lot of Banes do. And the problem with that is, if Watcho had made more Banelings, or if any Zerg opponent made more Banelings, these Marines don't have any scrunching material. Like, I don't know if you guys hear about this, but like things like in a car accident, like the frame of the car or whatever scrunches, so then it like reduces the impact of the fucking crash or whatever. So in this incident, it's sort of the same thing. Once all that scrunching is done, all you have is bare Marines, and they don't have any upgrades because you didn't quite go tech lab, or you didn't even start upgrading, which I'm going to talk about later. So your Marines sort of, you can actually just lose the game if they just went ham and they went all in. But Watcho didn't decide to do that, and you actually got a really, really lucky and great thing to do, great engagement off. Him running the Lings in was actually a very good thing. Even though it might seem that, oh, you left your supply depot, whatever, it's actually a really good thing, because say it wasn't walled off, okay? And it was walled off, and they went up and they saw it, and then they just ran away. Then they save all the Lings, right? But if they go in, you already have production making units and rallying them out, and you can easily just go in. You successfully trap the Lings, and those Lings are all dead, cost efficiently, because you have Marines against Speedlings in your base, which is a lot of SimCity for you. The only criticism I have of this SCV poll, and this is, you don't really have to, I don't really expect you to do this, but what you should do is, if you have time, control click the SCV instead of dragging a box over it and right clicking, because you want to have your mules mining. Your mules don't die in 2 Bane hits, they die in 3. Do they die in 2 Bane hits? I guess they do die in 2 Bane hits. But even so, your mules, you don't have that many mules. You want them to mine as soon as possible. They're like energy units anyways. You don't pay for them. You only pay energy. So why not have them mine as much as possible? Because they're going to die anyways. If you pull them off, they're not going to mine as much. So if you... just a suggestion, you don't have to listen if you don't want to, if you think it's a bad idea or whatever, you want to lose a mule. You can just control click your SCVs and then run them away, as opposed to dragging a box. Or if you drag a box, you control click the SCVs in the unit selection tab. so then the mules can keep mining. Yeah, so just a suggestion. I don't really expect anybody to do this, actually. As for these idle SCVs, you've been having them all game. What what a lot of Terrans do since Brood War is that they build their building, like say I BB and then place a racks here. I shift right click to a mineral patch. So then afterwards they'll go straight back to the mineral patch. That's in Brood War. People still do it in StarCraft 2. And actually, I think most people do it in StarCraft 2. So then your SCVs go straight away. The only building you don't have to do it for is refinery because they mine gas automatically afterwards. But you should shift click it. Or what you can do in StarCraft 2, what changed is that if you build a barracks and the barracks is already building and your SCV's like on there building the building, you can actually just right click the mineral patch. You don't have to shift click and they'll actually just go back when they're done because like StarCraft 2, it's just a better game. It's just a better engine run game, so I guess mechanics allow for that sort of stuff. So anyways, third point is allocation of resources. So you've been mining a lot, you've been milling crap, bit of oversaturation, actually a lot of oversaturation, and you sort of don't exactly know what's going on. At this point, once again, your scouting information hasn't improved in the slightest, and therefore you are making a bunch of buildings. So in a standard TVZ build with the reactor Hellion opening or whatever, people usually get, well, what Innovation does is that he gets a quick third CC, and then he gets his 2 engineering bays, and then he also gets extra production facilities, and also gets the Widow Mine to the starports. This is all what actually I think like most Terrans do, regardless of what's the difference is that the timings of those buildings. So you sort of have like 3 racks, and you really delayed their add-ons, and same with the starport and the factory and the command center. What usually happens is even if you go 3rd CC quick and then 2 engineering base and then production facility, your push still comes around 11:30 for medevac marine mine push. No marauders. Yeah, so you sort of do a push to harass the Zerg's 3rd, but that doesn't exactly happen. Do have to take account into the Baneling bus, which adds another maybe a minute and a half and 2 minutes. So you push to come around like 13 minutes, 14 minutes, but what we're seeing is that you don't quite are prepared for it. You only have 1 engineering bay. I always advise getting 2 engineering bays unless it's like some next level build that you really want to do yourself, because getting those upgrade timings at the same time just allows for better timings themselves. Like say you want to push, and if your upgrades are like split apart, then they don't quite do anything. And also, you have to, this marine push right here, it's sort of weird because say they rushed mutas and they didn't really saturate the 3rd base, right? So a 2 base muta rush is definitely easy to do, and if they surrounded you and you lost all that stuff and got surrounded, it'd be pretty bad. So also, you're floating lots and lots of money. This is actually, I'm not gonna lie, like this is one of those like noobish things. I'm not trying to be mean or anything, it's just that if you're stuck on 2 base and you're floating lots and lots of money, it's usually the trend of what you see in lower level players, whether they be whatever, okay? You just tend to see that. So when you see that you're only on 2 base, even though you have mules, even though you're dropping mules, even though you're whatever, you got to get rid of that money. And to constantly get rid of that money and have low money count the entire time, you already have to have production, like add-ons and everything, which you do. Only 3 racks though. On 2 base you can support more. I'll talk about that afterwards. You can support more buildings, but floating that much money, it's sort of just bad in general. And if you delay your production, it means you delayed your aggression timing and your expansion timing as well. So going on to the next point, taking a 3rd base. So how do you go about taking a 3rd base? Well, in this map, you generally tend to go take this 3rd base, and what happens is that you have your 3rd CC here, and you float it over here, and you take the base, and then you're happy. But what and in the games I personally played against you, you like never take your 3rd base until the game's like already heavily in someone's favor or something big already happened. which is a big problem because you want to have a backup plan and you want to have another location in which you can have more map positioning. So say you only have these two bases, you only control this part of the map, right? If you take a third base, you control significantly more of the map, and once you control more of the map, it means that your opponent, if they're controlling the rest of the map, they lose more of the map. And once they lose more of the map, you can have more potential to drop here. If you take this location, you can drop here easier, you can drop the natural easier. If you have this location, your natural only, you can only drop here and like here. So if you have more spots, then you have more places to drop, things like that. So just keep that in mind. Your upgrades are significantly late as well. And once again, there's just like idle SCVs because you haven't quite shift queued them. Yeah, so we'll go on with the game. The only thing you have to worry about drops is that mutas tend to shut them down pretty badly. In this game, if the Zerg is careful, that is. But in this game, we see the mutas coming in, and it's like the initial ball of mutas. If you get that initial ball of mutas, you know it's sort of like a disease. If you get it in its early stages, it's quite manageable. I'm just speaking out of my ass, but let's just bear with me. And if you let it survive and keep going, the muta ball will go greater and greater. And whatever it was set out to accomplish will just get better and better. But if you shut it down early, which you did, you can actually just start going ham on the drops because there's nothing really stopping you. If they decide to remake a muta ball, they need to build that initial principal muta ball again, and it's quite hard for them to do that. And once again, you don't have anything scouted like whatsoever. Like it's just, you know, you got to scout. You take this third base. This is really awkward. And a good thing you realize about that is, okay, I just dealt with a big attack. So against a big attack, if they keep rallying units to attack again, when I took a favorable engagement, then I'd hold it off pretty easily. So I have a lot of pressure alleviated from me, and I can start doing whatever I want. So it's my turn to do whatever I want, basically. So taking the sword was great. I'm sort of selling you short on the compliments here because I'm just going over like the mistakes and sort of stuff. This depot wall off is cute, but the whole reason people do depot wall offs at their bases is because it protects their bases. This doesn't protect anything. If it walled off completely, it's still really flimsy, but it doesn't quite do anything. If you put it like, say if you put a depot wall off here, and this is just totally hypothetical because people would never do this because it's just too risky. If you put a depot wall off here, and then all of a sudden you land your third here, and then all of a sudden you have a depot wall off. Or more commonly, you just put your depots around, SimCity them around your third. So then, if banelings ever come attack you, they'll kill the depots before they kill your SCVs. You know, more of the scrunching effect. So continuing on with this replay, you're actually massive ahead. But what ends up happening is you don't quite do anything. You just rely on scans to sort of scout. And that's kind of weird. What you should do to scout, or what I should say is what a lot of Terrans do to scout, is they drop, and this, like, you should just medevac boost instead of, you know, running up. And this fight is just, you really didn't scout, you really didn't have any vision. Every time before you want to attack, you want to try to drop somewhere, since they don't have mutas, right? You can drop somewhere, and then pull some of their army back, because your drops are extremely cost effective if you let them to be. So if you just push after you draw some of their army back, your army is smaller and their army is smaller. And when a Terran army is, you want like a big Lang Bane, an A move army against like a Marine medevac army, you want to minimize the micro you have to do, because they're really just they don't really split. They do have to split. They do have to like micro widow mines and stuff. But on creep, it's a lot easier for Zergs to make connections. Like if you A move Lang Bane against A move this, the Terran's gonna die. So you want to have as least micro as possible, and that's by making both armies smaller, by sending off drops and making them pull back units. And half the time what happens is that they don't prepare for the drop, so the drop actually does damage, and then they pull back to defend it. So, whatever. So that's what happens. I said to you earlier also that you don't ever want to lose your entire army in engagement. In this engagement, you cut to that, and since you didn't lose your entire army in that engagement, even though you took quite heavy losses, and even though they did as well, your third is now actually quite safe because of that. Because you didn't lose your, if you lost your entire army, then your third is like actually like gone immediately, and that actually happens in later in the game. That's what I'm talking about at all. So at this point, you're actually massively ahead, as I said before, because your mining is just crazily uncontrollable. I don't even know. I just fucking made that shit up. So you're mining the gold base as your third. Fourth should be really easy to take for you because your third is so up forward in position. Like for a Zerg to go through here, which is defended because you have units defending this. To attack this position, it's already pretty hard. So just like sort of keep your eye on the minimap, see what kind of stuff you can do. And these sort of drops, you always want to time drops with something else. Sure, you can do drops just to do damage, but if you do drops just to do damage and do something else like attack, then that would be great. Okay, so if you dropped here, it's kind of a not great place to drop. If you dropped here, say you bypass these spines and dropped here, then their army has to go from here, like the center mass of their army goes from here to like sort of like back here, you know? So they might have more units here, and they have, still they have units here if they're defending well. So then you're still dealing with less army, and if they're like a patch Zerg and they totally A-move their entire army to defend your drop, then you totally can just start ferrying and stuff and start attacking this expansion. But as is, you put pressure on here by doing these drops, and no pressures on this expansion, no pressures on any else of the map. You pressurize the bottom of the map, like right here. That's a hot spot. If you pressurize this bottom of the map, their army is going to be like here. The center mass of their army is going to be here. So you don't really accomplish any map position, any map control if you're just going to drop the same place where you're going to attack. Sidewise, anyways. So, going on from the massive advantage you have in this point, the next point is, what are you doing, and why is your opponent still in the game? I'm pretty sure you have no idea what you're doing right now, and again, I don't say any of this to like be hurtful or anything, even though it might be. You're just mining, and you're maxed right now, and you're sitting on marine, medevac, and a bit of mines. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish right now. If you're taking more expansions, then sure, go ahead, but you're not really quite doing it. You're doing these mini attacks, you're fighting spine crawlers, you're just sitting here with your army. And sitting here with your army is pretty bad because you're just letting the Zerg stay on 4 base, even though you might have denied some mining time or whatever. You're letting the Zerg stay on 4 base. Your drop finally comes into scout. Like, the drop to the main finally comes in at 22 minutes, and they're like Ultra Cavern is like having a seizure from the fucking chitinous plating. And against Ultras, you need Marauders. So in this game, which was seemingly unlosable, you actually get your entire army like completely just like but harassed because you went. That was really dangerous. You got fungal there, you would have just died right there. And Ultras are here. Okay, a move. All your units are dead. You just like lost all your stuff, and this is that instance, right, where you lose your entire army, and once you lose your entire army, suddenly this base, even though it's pretty much mined out, they're gone because you have no map control, you have no pressure on the map, except for this double drop going to the main, which does quite a bit actually, I think. And your units sort of die. You're at a supply deficit, and you still have to make units afterwards. So, yeah, that's what happens. I'll go after what you should. Well, you need Marauders, so I'll go after again what you do compared to Ultras, in relation to Ultras. So the point was, what are you doing and why is your opponent in the game? Well, your opponent, when you're playing from behind, you always hear these people going like, oh, well, I have to catch back up in macro, get a bit greedy to catch back up. Or I have to wait for something like Ultras. Or I have to do something like, I don't know, like a big muta 2-base thing. Or, just whatever. Just, they need some edge. And you need to find out that edge. If you don't find out that edge and it works, it's like the shittiest feeling because you, like, lose a game that you're massively ahead. And I'm sure we all had that feeling before. So that's pretty much all I have to say about your side. So I'm gonna go. One last thing is, I was watching Select's stream the other day, and he said something about buildings and bases and stuff. So I'm going to go to that on my Microsoft document. And that on their TVZ production, what Select is saying, and this is probably what everyone already knows, is that on 3 base, if you have an early 3 base, you're going to need 5 Raxes, 4 Barracks with reactors, and 1 with Tech Lab. And that's the whole standard opening, 1 Tech Lab opening where you have Combat Shield and Stim and everything, okay? And then you have 2 factories, 1 Tech Lab and 1 reactor. Well, why do you need the Tech Lab if they're both producing Widow Mines? Well, the reason is you need more than just 2 Widow Mine productions. You need that extra 1. But why not? Why is it not a reactor? It's because the Tech Lab is to research the Alligator Clips upgrade, or the drilling claws, or the tunneling drilling, I don't fucking know. The Alligator Clips upgrade, for the 1 second burrow, 1 second like fucking firing bullets and shit. And then you also need 1 starport, and that's with the reactor. So on 4 base, when you get your 4th base, you add 3 more barracks. And these 3 barracks don't have any add-ons, okay? So I'm going to repeat this again. On 3 base, you have 5 racks, 4 with reactors, 1 with Tech Lab. 2 factories, 1 with reactor, 1 for Tech Lab for the upgrade. 1 starport with reactor for medevacs. And when you're getting on 4 base, you add 3 more barracks with no add-ons. And the reason is that you already have a sick amount of production. So if you have 8 racks, 5 of which have add-ons, you don't need to make that much. Your econ is going to go ham, but you're going to be maxed already, like really, really quickly. So what you do with these no add-on barracks is, if you scout them, if you scout their hive tech and they're going ham on the ultras, you add 3 Tech Labs. Suddenly you have 4 reactor barracks and 4? Yeah, holy shit, I just derped. 4 reactor barracks and 4 Tech Lab barracks. So you can make Marines and Marauders, and you can go ham on the Marauders more than the Marines. You don't need to utilize the 4 reactor barracks to their full potential. And once you have those Marauders, you can just go ham on the Ultras. And that's just great. Against Broodlord, which people don't quite rush nowadays because of the whole HOTS thing, and Broodlords are bad against medevac boost because they just start, Terrans just start just doom dropping. If you see someone go like Broodlords on like Whirlwind or something, and like you just got to go ham on the dropping because they can't run around and defend all that shit. And put your Marauders in there because Marauders kill Lilings and expansions extremely quickly. And so if you see Broodlords after they already went Ultras, like they see you have a bunch of Marauders and they don't have any more Ultras and they go Broodlords, then you add 3 more starports. You can switch them out with your barracks for Vikings and stuff, but you can just go 3 starports, or you can switch them out with your Tech Labs for Ravens, That's just standard good macro play. So that's all the points I have for your side of the map. And I'm going to stop this recording. So hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you learned something about TVZ. I've been talking a lot.